We started to introduce the organising board in February of 2008, not long before the global financial crisis, and we had the help of executive success to implement this. It's something that you can't do without some strong consulting help. So fundamentally, it's a chart that splits the company up into 7 divisions, starting from strategy, HR, sales and marketing, accounting, operations, in our case includes auto and defence engineering, procurement and production, quality assurance and business development. The fundamental difference between sales and marketing is that's handling customers of today, where business development is looking for new products, new customers and new developments for the future, and this is where our titanium pipe, folding trailer and other global opportunities are coming. The process started with a great deal of time invested. It's something you can't do quickly if you want to do it properly. We started with understanding what is the final valuable product. Some people would call it a mission statement. And from there, for each division leading up is what has to be done within the company to achieve the final valuable product. And it makes sure that the communication system works up and down the divisions and moves from left to right. We're up to edition number 23, and as we have questions in our organisation as who is responsible for what, we refer back to this board to clarify what needs to be understood. If it's not on the board, then we revise the board, hence issue number 23. When we implemented this, one of the activities that came out in the accounting section was to develop a cash reserve, and now we've always thought in terms of working capital, but never a cash reserve. So this cash reserve we began to understand in early 2008 was related to product development opportunities as they came along, or if a crisis occurs. Sure enough, in September of 2008, the crisis occurred and we had $750,000 in a term deposit, and that helped us get us through the financial crisis. The other interesting thing is that as we discussed the roles and responsibilities from the org board, we began to understand that some people sharing work with other people, that some things weren't being done, some things that were being done that weren't adding value to the final valuable product. And we actually had an improvement in indirect stuff of more than 20%. And the way we handled that is, unfortunately, we had to retrench some people, but after the retrenchments there was no problems at all in terms of the way we ran the business. In fact, the effectiveness of the business improved. So my final valuable product as the CEO, amongst other things, is to run a profitable, growing and sustainable organisation. So each of the major divisions has KPIs, and there's 2 major KPIs that I have in terms of profitability and sustainability. One is EBITDA, and you can see from this chart that the blue is profit that we've made for this year up until the end of November, about 3.5 million. All these charts are on the basis, and it took us a while to comprehend this too, that up is good and down is bad. And so anything above this 0 line is good, and we've been running positively for the majority of the year. The other important point is the concept of solvency. And this was debated on how we could represent this meaningfully. And it boiled down to just a simple chart of debtors and cash, i.e. money that's coming in from our customers and cash we have in the bank, against the creditors, which is the money going out, so money in, money out. And as long as the blue line is above the pink line, then we're in good shape. So the rest of the KPIs, HR, including absenteeism, marketing, the efficiency of our quoting process, and currently we're running, we're achieving 86% of all the quotes that we put in, we actually win that business. And there are other financial and operational, and down the end in Division 6 is the titanium pipe development.
Beautiful. All right. So, Kevin, you mentioned this concept of exchange and fair exchange a lot, and it's been implemented throughout the company. So, tell me some benefits in terms of staff productivity that have occurred as a result.
Yes, well, the concept of fair exchange has been really important, Oisín, in terms of implementing the roles and responsibilities, because it's one thing for people to understand what their roles and responsibilities are, but there's another thing to take intrinsic ownership of those roles and responsibilities. So at the same time as rolling out this concept, we rolled out the concept of fair exchange, and as you well know, there's 4 levels, and we talked about it when we went through the plant, but people have been people very quickly aligned themselves with the concept of fair exchange, and by doing that, we were able to point out to them, and they were able to point out to us areas of the company operations that weren't being run fairly from their perspective, and vice versa. And there's been a lot of debate and development of the concept of fair exchange within the company, to the point now where people are using the word fair almost on a daily basis. And as we're getting more sophisticated and a better understanding of the concept, we're getting higher and higher in morale, and people are aligning themselves with the concept of fair exchange, and that's been extended to suppliers and customers. So people do respect that if a company is using the concept of fair exchange as it's meant to be, and that is fairly, and they respond very positively to that concept, because nobody likes to be treated unfairly.
Thank you. All right, and in terms of that's fine. Well, you did actually say something. Yeah, no, I had to cut that a bit. That's all right. Ready? Okay, so what was the question? Oh yeah. Okay, so what was the percentage increase in productivity as a result of putting an exchange in the org board?
It's interesting that over the last 2 and a bit years that we've actually been implementing the org board, and I might say that this is an ongoing process, it's not just a once-off. The overall productivity of the company has increased by 80%. The steel section that I mentioned has increased a little bit over 100%. The staff productivity, we estimate, has increased over 20%. And the morale in the company is the highest that I've ever been involved with in an Australian organisation. And the statistics on all the KPIs on the board here support that, with relatively low absenteeism, low turnover, and generally those KPIs are used to measure morale. We do surveys on morale, and recently we did an EBA, or in the process of finalising an EBA, and it's been done in a very good environment on the basis of fair exchange between the company and the employees. So there's been a huge improvement in productivity. I think also it's important to note that the people in the company want to know how the company is progressing financially. They want to know how the company is progressing with new business. And with this, these KPIs or statistics, we share these with the people formally on a monthly basis, a meeting in the canteen, but they can come and see at a glance how things are going. And you can see, for example, in October there's been a reduction in EBITDA, coincides with a reduction in schedule, and there's another chart further down that shows our schedule achievement. And it's not because we're not achieving the schedule, it's because the customers have reduced their call-up.
All right. And was there a, in terms of absenteeism, in terms of absenteeism, has that, I recall you telling me that actually had gone down and was well below industry average, is that true?
Yeah, the absenteeism in this company, the red is 2009, the blue is 2008, and the green is 2010. We're generally this year, and in 2009 we're running around about 2.5%. There's been a dip in the last couple of months coinciding with the flu and other illnesses that have been going through the company, But compared to other Australian companies, and I was just recently at a Toyota subsidiary, and they were bragging that they were running absenteeism rates between 5 and 6%. So for an Australian manufacturing company or an Australian company of any sort to have roughly 2.5% is unheard of generally in Australia.
Fantastic. All right, good. Now, you mentioned that you've used the concept of exchange with your suppliers and customers. Now, can you tell us some results you've had with that?
So one of our major customers, and I won't mention the name of the company, but there was an historical issue with the amount of money we're being paid for a range of product, and they had made a lot of promises to help us work with value engineering to reduce the cost of the product so that we could become profitable. In the end, there was a lot of discussion but no action. And after 2.5 years of discussion, almost 3 years, we went back to them and said, look, we can't continue to sell product to you at a loss, which we were losing. And as you can imagine, there was a lot of emotion associated with those discussions from their side, particularly being an auto company. Then as we got, this happened in June of 2008, when we were just starting to understand the concept of fair exchange, I wrote a letter to the purchasing executive director within the customer's organisation and said, we work on the process of fair exchange and we don't think you're being fair. The interesting thing is the very next day they came back and approved a significant price increase based on being fair. With the suppliers, we do the same thing with them. We try and be fair. So if there is a steel price increase which they have no control over, we immediately pay them the higher price. But in return, we expect them to deliver on time with zero defects. So their exchange is to give us product on time, zero defects that we can use to produce, and at the same time we can return by helping like things like price increases. But we expect them to work with us to improve the design and improve efficiency within their plant and help us improve efficiency in their plant. And generally what we do is we share the improvements in productivity, where they keep half of the price reduction and we keep the other half. Okay, one of the interesting concepts of this system, it was developed by Ron Hubbard of Scientology, and we're not a Scientology organisation, but this system is so powerful that who cares where it came from. And also, of course, we use the concepts of Karl Marx because we are a democratic organisation and we have people involved. So whether it's Scientology backed is irrelevant. This concept, we've shown about 50 companies or more than 50 companies now this concept, including all of the local OEMs or vehicle manufacturing companies and all of the major suppliers to those companies, including all of our suppliers. And it's interesting that they understand the power and they see the power of the concept. We explain to them that it's not a 5-day wonder or not a 9-day wonder. They have to put some serious effort into it. And some of the concepts that were exposed to us through executive success, like for just a simple thing like up is good and down is bad on a KPI or a statistic chart. It took us a long time to get our minds around that because we had been taught for years that you put zero down the bottom and you build your chart around zero on the bottom. So issues like that, understanding the valuable final product for the company, we debated that for 6 months before we clearly understood in ourselves. Now, to an outside company, it would be meaningless or motherhood, but to us it has particular meaning because we debated it. And the final valuable products, as we go up the organisation and that of the individuals, has been strongly debated. The frustrating part about it is that if companies in Australia use this concept and were able to put the effort in to understand the roles and responsibilities, to understand what it means, what it needs to be done to become globally competitive, what it needs to be done to achieve customer loyalty, what it needs to become to be clearly profitable, if they implemented the concepts of the organising board and were prepared to put a year's hard work into it, or even a fraction less time, then they would be vastly better off. And there is a huge resistance in Australian companies for historical reasons and cultural reasons to actually embrace this concept. So my words are to encourage every company to seriously consider this concept, because we are living proof that it works. And the fact that we use this almost on a weekly basis and almost on a daily basis at times, clarifying roles and responsibilities, understanding what the key performance indicators are of the organisation, and all of our charts in the company is now up is good and down is bad. So any of us can walk through the company and see at a glance whether we're heading in the right direction or not. And as I mentioned earlier, the absenteeism, there's been a dip over the last 2 months, but that's, so we investigated that in a direct correlation with the flu and other viruses that have been happening. So we can pick up these trends, and you can see that 99% of the charts on this board that they're moving in the right direction. So when we started the organising board, we understood or began to understand the marketing focus through the sales and marketing division and also the business development division. But we did a lot of work not really understanding what we were doing initially on the business development, which included increasing our communication with our customers and focusing on a limited number of new customers that we wanted to develop, and we spent a lot of time discussing how we would actually approach those companies and how we would sell ourselves as a company without being over the top. And it's interesting, in the first year we were able to pick up contracts from Toyota that were worth $17 million annualised. Of course, the GFC cut in and our general sales have trimmed, but at the moment we're still on a growth path. I don't think we're going to, develop 100% or year on year. But one thing that we need to understand in our environment is that we give cost reductions back to our customers of in the order of 5% per year. Because if we're going to maintain our competitiveness globally, then we've got to reduce our prices in line with what they can buy overseas. So the price is going down and our sales are going up, because it's forced us or led us to understand, and the consultant who worked with us became very frustrated with our lack of appreciation of what business development meant. And she spent a lot of time with me and other senior people in our organisation explaining from 20 different directions the power of selling ourselves as a company, not superficially, but presenting data to organisations that they can comprehend and are meaningful to that organisation. And that has led to, we did a recent survey with our customers and the auto customers, and without exception, we were giving absolutely flying colours, tick in the box from all aspects. So we have a high profile in the automotive manufacturing industry in Australia, and certainly Toyota Japan know the name Frontline because of some of the development work we've done for Toyota. General Motors, Holden, and General Motors North America are very cognizant of the things that we do. So we have developed the profile of the company, which in turn has led to sales and has led to profitable sales. So anybody can get sales, but it's got to be profitable. So we have been invited to become a member of the Toyota Supplier Council. There's 10 companies in Australia, of which we are one of the 10. The objective of the Supplier Council, as dictated by Toyota, is to improve the effectiveness of Australian manufacturing companies. But what was interesting is that we set this board up back, the actual board itself, as you see it today, was set up in around about July of 2008, and we had some senior Toyota executives through here at that time, and they commented that we as a company are doing some innovative things in terms of organisation, and it was after that, or about 12 months after that, that they actually invited us onto their supplier council. So we have an equal voice in developing programs, and the council is developing 3 fundamental programs. One is to improve the leadership and management capability of Australian manufacturing companies, and this is where the Org Board has a big part to play. Secondly, to look at the appropriate technology that needs to be implemented in Australian manufacturing companies for the future. And thirdly, to look at being competitive and benchmarking globally, because we're not competing with a company down the road. We're actually competing with companies in Asia, Brazil, generally South America, and coming on stream now is North America. So we have taken the challenge and been active participants within the Toyota Supplier Council, and it's been very rewarding, not only for us, but I think that now some momentum is starting to be developed, particularly in the leadership and management capability of Australian companies.
Excellent. All right, so what difference has the Hubbard management technology and the organising board, what difference has it made to you as a CEO and managing your staff and conducting your duties?
Yeah. So, Shin, prior to the organising board, I was a typical Australian executive, running around putting out bushfires, trying to do everything myself, not trusting people, not helping to train people, not understanding where people were intellectually and mentally and how aligned they were to the company's objectives. By having people understand what their roles and responsibilities are and having their own personal KPI or a statistic to measure their own personal performance, I was then able to step back because people were stepping up, and I was able to step back and concentrate more on the strategic issues, which is where I should be concentrating. And secondly, have spent a lot of time in the business development area with new products and new customers and developing a relationship with the customers. So my role has changed significantly from running around like a chook with a head cut off to being able to take a step back and look at the overall development of the company and the particular individuals within the company. Strategically, are we stepping in the right direction and getting people together as required to discuss strategic issues where previously that wasn't being done effectively.
Very good. How has it changed your hours? Do you work the same? Do you work less? How's that gone?
From an hours point of view, I'm probably a little bit of a workaholic, so it probably hasn't changed my hours very much in one sense, but on the other sense, I used to come in every Saturday. I'd usually just drop in for an hour just to show my face and add a little bit of empathy for those who may be working. But certainly from an intrinsic point of view, I feel a lot more satisfied with the contribution that I'm making as an individual, which in terms makes me feel good, and then that adds a culture or an imperative across the company that we should feel good when we do something constructive. But certainly I'm more effective, and more importantly, I'm allowing people to express their own individualism as long as they achieve their output. How they do it is of no real concern to me, as long as it's safe and as long as it's above the law. But the important thing is to see people get the enthusiasm and the excitement out of achieving what they mandated and paid to achieve, and just seeing a smile on their face and that just sense of satisfaction that they're getting from understanding what their role is and where they fit into the organisation and how their contribution is effectively measured.
Very good. Great. All right. And been received and implemented by your senior managers?
In terms of implementation by the senior managers, initially there was 2 senior managers that were reluctant, because as we got further into it and they comprehended that their performance was actually going to be measured in detail, and they were nervous about that. 2 of them actually resigned over a period of time, which was a blessing in disguise, because what we then did is hire people specifically with the right attitude and the right productivity from our perspective to fill those roles. So not only did the people who were frightened jump ship, but we were able to, with the knowledge that we had, to hire appropriate more appropriate people to fill their hole, and the quality of the staff within our organisation is second to none within Australia, as far as I'm concerned, from a manufacturing point of view.
And, the performance of your key managers, how has that changed since you implemented the organising board?
So the performance of the key managers has changed in the sense that they're not being micromanaged by myself, so they're able to plan and talk to their people and implement programs without coming to me and saying, what do I do next? So we've moved from a task-orientated management style to a very much a project management style. So we, at the senior management level, look at what we need to do across the broad spectrum of the company, and each of the individual managers that are responsible for appropriate sections of the company's development then go away and work with their people to achieve those results, and the results are mapped on this board, and we can see at a glance whether they're making progress, and believe me, they're making serious progress. And they feel more content, they feel happier. Our absenteeism, our turnover is non-existent. We haven't lost any people that we want to lose, and people generally are feeling relatively happy with the progress of their company, but more importantly, the way that they're being able to express their individualism and achieve results and get the rewards and satisfaction from their own achievements.
Great.
Following the development of the org board and developing roles and responsibilities, we then felt a need to get everybody involved in the company in improvement activities. So what we've set up is 16 teams, the executive team, and then functional teams in every area of the plant, coordinated by a mentor. And the mentor's role is not to tell the group what to do and how to do it, but just simply to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to say their piece, put up their ideas, and most of the ideas are actually implemented by the people themselves as a team. And there's minutes that are put out each week. There's a weekly meeting, and those minutes are on our intranet so everybody can see them. So working very successfully.
Right.
Okay. So as an extension of the organising board, these are the senior management team, and it was very important that each of the people here understood their final valuable product. So every opportunity we take is to publicise that final valuable product. So the process engineers, the engineering manager, purchasing, CFO, HR, and our R&D manager, which is really Division 6, there's a very clear understanding of what their final valuable product is and what they need to contribute. And actually we have final valuable products for down below also. Australasia is a manufacturing engineering company. We were founded in 1988. We're a private company, Australian owned, and we're standing here down the front of the plant, just come out of the office. The red shows valves and defence manufacturing, machining, manifolds for the General Motors V6 engine, aluminium product, steel product, and dispatch. And on these charts here shows the sales development over the last 15 years, the alliance companies that we use for technical implementation, our defence customers and our auto customers. So we have a total of 13 customers, and they all pay on time. The automotive product, which ranges from exhaust manifolds for the V6 engine to external accessories for local and imported cars. And defence, we make helicopter landing systems for frigates and mainly valves for naval application, and we make a propeller system for the ASLAB vehicle that's used by the US Marines and used in Afghanistan. Okay, so obviously one of the major imperatives of our company is to improve our safety performance, and this board was developed by ourselves and Toyota, and it's been rolled out across the Toyota Australian supplier base. So it covers the philosophy, the people who are trained as first aiders and safety representatives, and this chart shows whether we've had any incidents. Green is nothing, yellow is a near miss, and red is a lost time injury. We lost one shift recently with an incident. where there are incidents, we plot against a particular type of injury on the map, so we can see if there's any patterns developing. And the good news is that this chart here shows the cost of safety. The blue is the work cover premium. This is 2004-5, and actually the industry premium. So 5 or 6 years ago, we were spending a lot of money on safety, which means we were injuring people, and now we're well down below the industry average. So our incidents and accidents have improved markedly. Carroll, and then went into generally machines valves, but is currently machining a side wings for a Prado bull bar. But the interesting thing is about Dean Kalinka, who actually operates this machine. He's been involved in the EBA negotiations with the company, the enterprise agreement, and it's not totally finished yet, but the spirit in which the team has negotiated has been excellent, and I think the concept of fair exchange has been very much adopted by both, hopefully by the management and also the plant employee representatives. So we're really, from a personal point of view, really excited about the point that people can sit down and talk about a very difficult situation and come out of it in a very positive and constructive manner. So the principle of fair exchange is important within our organisation. Have a nice day.
Thank you. You too.
Right. This is the general approach we have for scheduling the production in the organisation. This is for November's schedule for the aluminium section, and it lists the products and the daily outcome. And there's a meeting here at 8 o'clock with the appropriate people to look at the performance against the schedule. So anything that's in blue is on schedule, and anything that is red is behind schedule. So no major problems. But what we could do from there is move into a whole bunch of KPIs or statistics, and this has come from the organising board, as the organising board has developed through the plant, and this measures the efficiency of various parts of the aluminium section, and you can see little unhappy faces, really based on the tone scale, as a matter of fact, and then some smiley faces as sections are developing. It's interesting that, as we've been taught through the organising board, is that if you measure something and you get people involved, so the senior team members that are involved in the schedule own and plot this data, and then they have to report to the manager each morning what's happening with the trend and what they're doing to improve it, and any improvement activities are recorded on these sheets, and then the longer term ones are recorded on the whiteboard through there. So this is a principle we use right across the company to keep people involved, to get them take the ownership and responsibility for their sections. So this is just an example of some of the team activity in the aluminium area. What the people have done after they've been trained is to document each step in their process, and the idea is that they measure the amount of walking, and the amount of non-value added time, and the people that are running the machines have been developing fresh ideas and new ideas to improve productivity. In fact, in this area here, in the aluminium production area, this year up until the end of October 2010, we've made almost a 35% improvement in employee activity. And some of the things that they've been doing is to make up racks that are shown here as an example of how to store multiple product, and that's been done by the operators themselves. And then just going back to the production area across here, there's an activity being done by the operators and one engineer to vastly improve the performance of this linishing operation, which is a grinding operation on the outside of the tube. And it looks like we'll be able to put out a world patent on this particular equipment that they're developing to automatically feed the tube through the linishing machines, and that's been done fundamentally by the operators, and by having them involved and free to share their ideas, and they get recognition, both sometimes monetary, but a lot of the times we will send really outstanding employees to Perth with their family for a weekend, or to Brisbane. We've spent a lot of money on buying people refrigerators and televisions just to reward them for the excellent work and the excellent attitude that they've shown towards the improvement in the company.
Video will actually help us a lot penetrate companies to show them a bit more reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, stories are real.
Well, it's interesting though with the EBA, because we've been pushing, quite frankly, that from my perspective, probably the most important point out of the org board has been the concept of fair exchange, and which means we treat people. And, Dean was one of the major contributors, and he's a good operator, but he can be fiery at times, but he was very, very constructive. They all were.
That's beautiful. And it's in their best interest anyway. That's what the unions forget.
Yeah, well, the union's been trying to recruit people constantly, but they haven't had. I
think the workers forget, when the union's trying to get the best, a rip-off exchange, where the company loses, gives everyone. It kills the jobs in the end,
Yeah. Roughly 75 to 80%, but the morale of the people is as high as I've ever seen it in any company in Australia. And I just saying to Oisín, I think the principle of fair exchange is the thing that people, and we do try and treat people with respect, but we keep using this concept of fair exchange, and we've been bombarding, well, not bombarding, but reinforcing, so that it becomes part of, people, even the people on the plant will say, yeah, well, that's fair. Well, no, that's not fair. And we've used it with our customers, because we had a major punch up with Ford, and they were underpaying us for some product for a number of years, and we're trying to get them to do benchmarking. So what we have here is the receiving area for our steel product. It's called a supermarket, and it's been developed with the help of the Toyota Motor Corporation of Australia. So based on our scheduling board for steel, the guys here kit up these blue trolleys, which are about 2 shifts ahead of the robotic welding cells. Then, so they look at the scheduling board, look at what's coming in 2 shifts' time, and then take from the supermarket what they need and build up a trolley. And then when that trolley is complete, it goes down in the storage area further down the plant. If there are any trolleys where there are shortages, the shortages are recorded on a board, and the purchasing and logistic people have 2 shifts or roughly 12 hours to follow up and get the parts in. All of the parts that come in are based on a Kanban, which is ordering parts from the suppliers with a ticket which come from the Japanese manufacturing system, and most of our tubs now have actually got the Kanban stuck to the tub. It has a sketch of the part that should be in the tub, the quantity, the weight, and we actually return these to the supplier empty, and they automatically fill these up and return them next day. So what we have here is the robotic welding of steel tow bars, and you'll see the alley here will be going over and unloading the bar that's just been welded. We have increased the cycle time in the last 12 months by 30% with the implementation of some new technology that we developed with Wollongong University and the CSIRO, a technology called MIGFAST. But also, apart from that, over the last 2 years, the productivity in this area, since we started to implement the org board, has increased in the steel area, has increased by over 100%. So we're doubling the output now that we used to make 2.5 years ago. And it's a lot to do with people understanding their responsibilities, the concept of fair exchange, doing a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. And at the same time, as part of fair exchange from our perspective, is to use the concept of not hurting people. So we've spent a lot of money, for example, installing those red lifting devices where people used to handle everything manually, and we saw that as part of the fair exchange from the company's perspective, and they're able now to lift the bar without doing any injury to themselves, and there's been no back injuries in this area since about 1.5 years ago that we installed these lifting devices. You'll be able to see them just working a minute. The interesting thing is that as we've improved the cycle time or reduced the cycle time and doubled the productivity, the actual operators have been on side. So they haven't, in a normal environment 20 years ago or 10 years ago, operators would rebel against theoretically working twice as hard, but it's not about that. It's been taking out the waste, improving the activities from an efficiency point of view, and just having the people understand the global competitive position we're in and what we have to do as a company and a country to maintain productivity and competitiveness in a global marketplace. And of course the org board, the concept of fair exchange, and just some good decent people and a good selection processes enable us to make these improvements. So here we have the bending operation for the tubular aluminium product, and again we had a safety problem with the loading of the tube onto the machine, where the operators had to push the tube right along the mandrel, which was quite a difficult procedure. We spent over $130,000 just recently to improve the performance of the machine and re-engineer it. And again, that's part of giving back to the people and the concept of fair exchange. So we don't expect them to work in an unsafe environment. The work that this man's doing here, Jason, used to be done by 2 people. And as a part of the re-engineering of the machine and the involvement of the people, we've been able to reduce from 2 people back to 1, again helping us stay competitive in the global environment. And as we look around across to the trolleys over here, they are holding particular product in particular rows, but the interesting thing is that those trolleys have been developed by the people, by the operating people, and they're flexible. It holds any product that we make, and it's just been a fantastic improvement in the performance and the visual appeal of our company. This is an example of cooperation from our supplier base. So again, we get them intimately involved. We've been reducing the number of suppliers and only working with people who are prepared to help us, and we help them. This concept was designed by a company called CMTP, which is one of our technical alliance companies. The boxes that are used here are to store product that goes out to the dealerships for our customers. We used to get boxes on pallets, and they were stacked up to the ceiling. We used to damage on average about 5%, and one of our people, Masood and CMTP, came up with this concept of delivering boxes for today. Each morning the truck comes in at 7:30, and there's only exactly enough boxes to get us through for the end of the 2 shifts. And since we've implemented this for about 9 months ago, I think we've had 1 reject. So just an example of working fairly with our supplier base. Right. This output area of the plant is for the final packaging of tubular polished product. Raj here is just assembling a box before we install a polished aluminium product into it. Thanks, guys. So here we have an example of the manual touch-up polishing. This happens to be a nudge bar being made on the left and a sports bar being made on the right. The robot polishing does about 95% of the production, and the final touch-up has to be done manually. It's interesting to note, though, that the guy on the left-hand side, those masks, which are compressed air masks, he went home one night and got on the internet and found a new piece of equipment that has improved the environmental friendliness of the actual operation. Is product coming up to the welding bays for manual welding, and when they've been welded, they then come across to be robotic polished. And the robot does all the hard work, does about 95%, and as I mentioned earlier, then it goes through to manual polishing. These machines are actually made in Italy, and the best technology on the market at the moment, and has taken away 90% or 95% of the hard work. Really? This room is called a visual control centre. It's been introduced to us by Toyota, and it's a room that we use for making major improvement activities. And recently we had an improvement activity where we had people from other companies and our own people come in, and they worked on a particular issue in the plant. Now, there's one thing for people to know what they have to do, there's one thing for them to be trained, there's one thing for them to participate in improvement activities, but you've got to give them the mechanisms to be able to do this, and this process does that. And so you can see a lot of activity, a lot of data gathering, and the conclusions have led and are leading to productivity improvement and quality improvement. The company is based on an open office plan, and this is a quality section with Grogan in it. Next door is the coordinated measuring machine where we check the dimensions of our product. We're scanning across to design engineering with Sally and Greg. So as we look down the plant, nobody has an office. We have a lot of meeting rooms. Looking down towards the end of the office is the org board, and in between here and there are purchasing, operations, defence, and engineering, process engineering, and behind the org board is the commercial section, accounting, HR, and where I sit.
followed up and followed up and followed up with me, and I said, sitting there going, this guy is going to be...
Finish the email I interrupted.
Yeah, I'll finish this.
Yeah, it's good if you're doing.
Specialise in concept of land design, and because we've got cost imperatives and weight imperatives that we're still working towards achieving, and they're specialised in this concept of land design and optimising the environment.
Good. Very good. Would it worth you coming along as well?
Yeah, probably.
Because you can talk the talk.
Yes.
I can talk a lot.
Yes, no, that's good, because then I can introduce you and then what you do after that. It's up to you.
That's right. Okay, and what would be best to do?
Probably at the government offices in Melbourne or Sydney or Canberra. So I'll talk to Joe. There might be before Christmas. After Christmas. I'll try and make an appointment after Christmas.
Yeah. Has he been here? Yeah, has he been here?
Yes.
But he's had it.
The field was very big part in the development of that country.
Right.
And the fact that the Titanium and the coal, he's right up to that with coal and Titanium. Yeah, well, that's why when I showed companies through, I didn't know my mother, but I also always make a comment about coal.
So thanks for your tour and all that.
It's been a pleasure.